Good evening from the nation's capital. I'm David Aiken. Thank you so much for watching. New Brunswick voters go to the polls in exactly 4 weeks. And of course, our Sun News team is on the ground for the entire campaign period, tracking the major campaigns, and we'll do that right up until Election Day on the 22nd of September. Here's our Paige McPherson to get us started to tell us what happened today on New Brunswick's campaign trail.
Liberal leader Brian Gallant took the opportunity at his infrastructure announcement here in Moncton to slam PC Premier David Alward's focus on fracking and said instead that he would focus on jobs. He also confirmed for Sun News that all Liberal candidates must follow his party's line of eliminating all barriers to abortion in the province. PC Premier David Alward kicked off his morning with an announcement at a strategic port in the province before campaigning in several French ridings. Meanwhile, NDP leader Dominic Carty spent the day campaigning in Sackville.
And of course, it's no surprise that the controversial issue of abortion would come up early, and it's probably going to come up often during this particular election. It's been a hot topic there ever since the province's only private abortion clinic, the Morgentaler Clinic, closed earlier this year, citing the fact it couldn't get funding from the province. Joining us now is our chief election correspondent, Bryn Weiss from beautiful Minto, New Brunswick, with more on that. Bryn, what happened today on this particular issue?
Well, David, you said it best when you said it's no surprise this issue has come up early in this campaign. And as you mentioned, it is a controversial issue here in New Brunswick. Currently, the law only allows abortions for women who get 2 doctors to say that an abortion is medically necessary to protect the mother's health. And it also has to be done in a hospital, whereas in other provinces, family doctors can perform abortions. So it is a controversial issue here. And earlier today, Brian Gallant, the Liberal leader, stressed that he is now a pro-choice leader who is leading a pro-choice party, and he expects that all 48 other Liberal candidates are going to vote pro-choice in the legislature to do away with this restriction known as 8420. And David, this rule actually goes back to Frank McKenna's rule in New Brunswick almost 20 years ago. And since then, other governments like Bernard Lord's and others have all upheld this regulation. But it's because of that Morgentaler Clinic closing earlier this year that this has come to the forefront again, and it explains why Brian Gallant was talking about it today on the campaign. Let's watch.
Our position as a party is that we do not think that the province of New Brunswick is respecting a woman's rights to choose. We've made it very clear that if we form government, we will swiftly act to find all barriers to these rights and make sure that we eliminate them. Any candidate that will respect that position and that will support that position can run for us. It's not about personal preference. It's about ensuring that we respect a woman's right to choose, and I've made that very clear to all 48 candidates that would be running with me in this election, and we'll ensure that we continue to push this issue because we do believe it has to be resolved, and it has to be resolved in a quick manner.
But David, here's the challenge for Gallant. There are many Liberals here in New Brunswick who are pro-life. They don't like the idea of easy access to abortions. And so by Brian Gallant coming out with this policy, there is a concern perhaps that some of those pro-life supporters might go over to the Conservatives, which are in fact the only party maintaining the status quo. Earlier this month in the Telegraph Journal newspaper, David Alward said, quote, "Our position is clear. We have been taking the same position as governments who have gone before us, including the McKenna and Theroux governments, the Lord government, and the Graham government. That is so that we ensure that medically necessary services are available in our public health institutions in New Brunswick, and that will continue." So David Alward supports the status quo. Brian Gallant saying he supports removing those restrictions on abortion. But the other side of this debate, David, would have progressives perhaps going to the NDP, because maybe Brian Gallant is not as supportive of women's rights as some progressives would like him to be. And that explains, I think, why Dominic Carty, the NDP leader, is very pro-choice. He's making it very clear that on day one, he would remove 8420, that restriction on abortions in this province. Again, in the Telegraph Journal earlier this month, Dominic Carty said, quote, "A new NDP government would get rid of Regulation 8420, which is a requirement that women have to find 2 doctors before they can access abortion services, and they have to prove it medically necessary. These are not restrictions that are in place for any other medical procedure." David, another interesting note about New Brunswick, the largest religious group here, believe it or not, is Catholic. So that also may help explain why abortion is such a hot topic in New Brunswick, and why, I dare say, we're going to be speaking about it again in this campaign. David?
And why it crosses party lines, Bryn. I mean, there are going to be Liberals who are Roman Catholic, and there are some Liberal MLAs who are on the record, I think about a half dozen of them, saying You know, they are in pro-lifers. They're not comfortable with changing the status quo. And similarly, there's going to be progressive conservatives who may want to be freeing up some choice rules. So it is going to be a hot topic. Now, one of the interesting things in terms of this, you know, this race is that we're seeing abortion at the federal level become a topic, and that's because, of course, as we know, Justin Trudeau has forbidden any candidate from even running for his party unless they agree with his stance. And Trudeau was in town over the weekend campaigning side by side with Gallant.
Yeah, that's exactly right, David. Trudeau's presence here over the weekend really threw fuel on this fire because, of course, Justin Trudeau, as you mentioned, has brought about, some would say, a controversial stance on abortion at the federal level for the Liberals. So by him coming to New Brunswick, really the heartland of the abortion debate in Canada right now, of course, it has stirred that issue up. And Trudeau, as well, was asked about the issue of abortion, whether he would expect all provincial Liberals to vote for pro-choice, even if they believe in the pro-life cause. Here's what Trudeau had to say over the weekend.
The Liberal Party of Canada's view is that it's not up to government to take away rights that women fought hard for over the past decades, and we will definitely continue to respect women's right to choose and make sure that we're defending that with our votes in the Liberal Party of Canada.
So, David, it does remain to be seen, of course, how the abortion vote will break in this election, but certainly it's not as easy as drawing political lines in the sand. David?
Bryn Weiss in Minto, New Brunswick right now.